Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about Mecha Hack. So, Absolute Tabletop has created a brand new tabletop role-playing game. Matt Click specifically put it out. It's called Mecha Hack, and it takes Jason Black's Black Hack and creates a game that you can use to run virtually any intellectual property mecha storyline. So you could run Neon Evangelion with this. You could run, Gurren Lagann with this. You could run Gundam. You could run Pacific Rim. But what we chose to run with this specifically is Battletech. I put together a one-shot for my friends, which and everybody was really excited. Everybody jumped on board. I really had great engagement with my players before and during the game. And it turned, so we finished the night, the one shot. Everybody had such a great time. One of the players said, "Hey, can we play tomorrow?" So it was, and they wanted a continuation of the story we had just finished. And I said, "Sure, let's do it," right? Because we already have it. We had everything ready, So now I did have to come up with one night's worth of gameplay and I held this on a Tuesday, and I had to, do it the next day on a Wednesday. And so really all I had was an hour after the game, and then about a half an hour literally just thinking, on my way home, from my ride home. So it was really very small timetable to write that stuff. And I literally just put it together in my head and wrote down about 4 lines and ran the story for the continuation of the story that night. So on the first night, it was, the story was the 4 player characters. All are mech warriors. Each has a specific battle mech in Smoke Ravens, which was an independent mercenary group in the Battletech universe in the year 325, prior to the clan invasion. Okay, the player characters were we had a Maverick pilot with a brawler, and specifically he was running a Griffin, and then we had a commander pilot running a Titan, which in the Battletech world, specifically he was using the battle mech, the Battle Master. We had another player running another Maverick pilot type, and he was using a Scout chassis, and specifically he was using the Uziel battle mech with the Belial variant. And then last, we had a Quipster pilot who was running a Striker, which and that was specifically the Thunderbolt battle mech, right? So those were our players. On the first night, what happened was the player characters were introduced to the Smoke Ravens. Farah Hetched is the very incredibly capable but also kind leader of the mercenary group, kind to her own men, brutal to everyone beyond the Smoke Ravens, beyond the Smoke Ravens. She's a good and beloved leader, right? And basically, Farah Hetched is leading the Smoke Ravens, and she actually comes to the entire mercenary group and offers them a choice between 2 different jobs. They can go revenge one of the previous pilots, mech warriors for the Smoke Ravens. His name was Dran. He was kind of the heart of the mercenary group. He was either your rival or your friend, but either way, he made you a better person, pushing you to do more, right? And he was very well liked within the organization. And there was a time when Smoke Ravens went against House Steiner. His mech was knocked down, and he got out of his mech to run off the field and see if maybe he could catch a VTOL. But one of the House Steiner mech warriors came over, and as he was exiting the cockpit of his battle mech, actually smashed down the cockpit of his battle mech and killed him. So used a mech to actually directly attack a mech warrior, which that is definitely non-code. Like that is not cool, dude. So she said, we can go do this revenge against Strand's House Steiner killer, or there is this refueling station, and we have intercepted communication, and we know that House Steiner... Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Dran was killed by... No, that's right. That's all right. So there's this refueling station, which is called Reft. The planet is called Reft, and it's in a system set. The system settlers own this planet and several other planets there, but House Marek had sent. No, I'm sorry. Try to get this right here. House Marek had sent. House Marek was the killer of Dran, and then House Steiner had sent 3 lances to Reft to actually take over Reft, and they only had 2 of those left, and they were actually asking Steiner. They were actually asking Steiner for additional lances to hold the position. So Smoke Raven leader Farah said, "Hey, what are we going to do? What's the decision here? Do we want to pay out of pocket and do this revenge deal, and we get nothing but revenge, or do we want to go and take this incredibly lucrative deal, which we can kind of write our own ticket with Reft? We can reach out to any house and bring them in to take over this land, or we could actually give it back to the system settlers, right? Or we could take it for ourselves, right?" And so one of my player characters said, "Let's draw House Steiner's killer. Let's draw House Marek to actually attack Steiner on Reft. We'll kill Dran's killer, and we'll also then get. We'll actually then we'll bring in another house, House Karida, and allow that house to take over, and then we'll actually sell them Reft, essentially, right?" So that's what they did. That fight went down. There was a very, very good long battle where they essentially 1 lance fought against 3 lances, which were mostly medium and light lances, defeated them all, and killed Dran's killer and took over Reft, right? Which all was very, very helpful. It was exactly, they achieved their every objective, and that was the end of night 1, and everybody had a good time, and they're like, "Hey, we want to do this again," right? So I was like, "Great, let's do it," all right? So one of the things that had happened in game 1 that was kind of a minor exploration point was the player characters had gone looking for through all 3 drop ships. By the way, Smoke Raven has 3 drop ships, 3 jump ships, 8 drop ships, 56 mechs, right? And they had gone, so the player characters had helped Vasi, the lead engineer for the Smoke Ravens, find these special batteries called Nova Frank batteries. They had been mislabeled in the 800 crates that the Smoke Ravens had, right? And they helped him find it. Well, while they were looking in all these weird places, they came across Marg and Etiliana. And Marg was a new mech warrior pilot, a little bit younger than Farah Hetched, but he was now engaged to Farah Hetched. Farah Hetched had proposed to him, and they were in love, and they were a thing. But here he is in this they discovered him, and Marg and Etiliana did not see that the player characters discovered them, but Marg and Etiliana were just sharing a meal, and it was clear, and at the end of the meal, the 2 of them kissed, and it's clear to them that Farah Hetched's specific fiance is actually cheating on her, right? So they know this, right? So during the game, they do nothing with this information. At the end of the one shot, one of the player characters say, "I'm going to send the videotape of that directly to Farah Hetched." So session 2 starts with Farah Hetched incredibly angry, and she takes a deal she takes a deal from House Lao to help them with an incursion into House Marek. And actually, of course, Smoke Raven has bad blood with House Marek anyway, because that pilot Thesk had killed Dran. Now, Smoke Raven has already killed Thesk, but it's harder for them to do a deal with House Marek than any other house, right? They're still mercenaries. Marek will still hire them at times, but there's no trust there, right? But so basically, at this point, Farah Hetched, the leader of Smoke Raven, takes this deal where they're going to go in and be the initial punch in an incursion from Lao territory with Lao mechs into House Marek territory onto a fortified planet, right? And they're going to be the initial, like, soften up the defenses, right? And so they know they're going into a situation where exactly where they're going to be attacking, they're going to be down 4 mechs to 1, right? And Farah gives this very Red Day speech, like, you know, I'm not asking you to die for me. I'm asking you for you to live and to kill for me, you know, and kind of rallies her troops and is like saying, hey, I know this is going to be a tough deal, but we get what we're being paid is 1 mech per lance that we kill, a full day of salvage. We get to salvage first before House Lao will salvage, and then also they get 3,000 C-bills per pilot, right? So they are getting paid lucrative for this, but it's incredibly dangerous. And the player character that sent that videotape realizes that this is an angry, let's go kill some stuff deal that's been taken by Farah because she's upset, right? So, and they're all like, oh boy, right? You know, but they're also mech pilots. And actually, Farah Hetch beforehand says, listen, we have recruits right now. If anybody wants to stay on the ship and even, I can even have, if anybody wants to leave Smoke Raven now, this is our most challenging mission we've ever done. We have enough recruits on board our jump ships right now. If you want to step back and give your mech up so that you don't have to die today, possibly, a recruit will fill your mech, right? Absolutely not a single mech warrior does this, including the player characters. And they're like, even though we are down 4 to 1, we're still in, right? So at that point, they all go down. Now, at that point, it was really nice. We were using the HeroClix miniatures to do this, and we did a second battle. And one of the things that was great was the first battle, we had a 3-hour session, and I've been trying to move my games to 2 hours, but you know, it was a night where I had a little more time, and so we did a 3-hour session. We used the first 45 minutes for building our mechs and our characters, and then we had about 2 hours and 15 minutes of actual gameplay. And I would say like an hour and 15 minutes of that, maybe even a little bit more, was all talkie, and then only the last 45 minutes to an hour of the first session was battle. Whereas the second one, we had 15 minutes of talk at the beginning, and we were having, we were shooting our LRM-10s by minute 20 of the second session. And the player characters were really happy about this because they really liked the mechanics within Mecha Hack. They loved seeing how the battle mechs worked. They really loved just seeing all of that, right? So we bring it in, and I'm using the Mech Warrior miniatures for both for the player character, mechs, and for, of course, all the NPC mechs, right? Well, one thing that was really nice too is I'm very fortunate. I actually have about 30 of these Battletech mechs, and they don't even print these anymore. They're out of print. But I'm fortunate. I've always been a Battletech fan, and I have about 30 of these things. And another buddy of mine has about 40, right? So we really just had a fantastic. The board looked amazing, right? So I have all 4 of my player character mechs out on the board, and in addition to that, I bring in a light lance, a medium lance, a heavy lance, and an assault lance. There are 16 mechs. We have 2 rounds of combat, and within those 2 rounds of combat, one of my player characters chopped off the head of another mech with his laser axe. We had LRMs firing through missile barrages. We had PPC hits. We had Gauss rifle firings. We had mines that were detonating in the ground. I had my player characters were actually detonating mines with short-range missiles, and using the mines that I had put there to blow up the PC mechs. They're using them, detonating them at range, and using them against their opponents. It was like really, really awesome. I cannot talk highly enough about the Mecha Hack. It is an incredible accomplishment. It really is this amazing tool set that you can use to just jump into these mech worlds and just have so much fun so quickly. It is, I cannot speak highly. It costs $6. It's less than a movie ticket, and with it, the first time I even ran it, we got 2 3-hour sessions for 5 people. I always say this: the value on the dollar for value on TRPGs is absolutely incredible. So here's what happens at this point. So one of my players is a commander for what I said in the beginning. So at this point, there's 2 rounds of combat, but at the end, right? What I have is I'm going into the second round, and now it's my turn, and I get to move all my NPC mechs, right? So as it stands, my NPC mechs, I have 7 mechs left, right? And one of my players has a light mech, right? Now, and 4 of those mechs are all assault grade mechs that are untouched and undamaged. So I was just going to rain all 7 down on them, and I have mecha aces in them. They have tons and tons of attacks, right? I was just going to take one of the characters off the board, right? And you know, concentrate my fire and kill one player character, right? But one of the things I had thought about this earlier in the day, and what I had Farah Hetch come in from the left and say Vector 3, which is, hey, I need you guys, and she says this to the Lance Commander. So the Lance Commander player character, she says this directly to him. She says, hey, get off the field right now. I see your situation. I think you're going to have, you know, you're about to lose a mech. Get out of there now, right? Or more, right? And so she says, she tells all the player characters, get off the board. Now the player character then has I said, hey, are you going to obey her or are you going to disobey that command, right? And he says, I'm going to obey. I'm getting everybody off the, and so he tells all the other mechs, get off the board. And there was this great point, there's this great point where he's saying retreat. And I go to every player character and I'm like, your Lance Commander Sharp, a player character, has given you a command. Do you remove your mech from the field or do you not? And I literally had them physically pick up their mech if they decided to. So the Lance Commander immediately removes his mech. 2 of the other players remove their mech, and then 1 player stays, right? So the 1 player that stays, I have the Lance Commander come in, tear up one of the assault mechs, create a cloud of dust to actually obscure the other player character, and then Farah Hetch takes all that attacks that we're gonna kill one of the player characters and dies, right? And so now at this point, Farah Hetch, the leader of the Smoke Ravens, has died. I forgot I did one more thing before we went into combat at the very beginning of session 2, and that was I had Lance Commander Hannibal Sharp, that was the player character name, talk to Lance Commander Haytorn. And Haytorn came in at the beginning of the session and said, hey, I saw what you did on Reft. You did a great job. You did a good job, commanding your Lance. But I also saw that one of the men under your command, one of the other player characters, did some major modifications to their mech without asking you to. You should immediately command them to take that off, right? And Haytorn referred to the other Lance Commander as he said, I'm your mentor, right? And like the Lance Commander, I'm like, the player characters, we're both Lance Commanders, right? He's not my mentor, right? I'm like, no, he's not. And and then he, Lance Commander Haytorn is like, I know you want to give independence to your mech warriors, but I grew up on, XYZ planet, and, my father had hunting dogs, and the one thing he told me is never, destroy a good hunting dog by letting them have independence. So I established this Lance Commander as a jerk in the beginning, and actually I didn't have to say he's a jerk. All the players are like, wow, that guy's a jerk, which is good. So then when Farah Hetch dies, it was incredible. Like, all the player characters get out of their mech, they go over, and they say, what she look like? Is she even intact? And I'm like, she's really, she is dead, but, and like, she's kind of torn up. And one of them says, I take the Smoke Raven flag, that was flying on my mech, and I'm actually going to, I'm going to wrap it around her, and I'm going to put her Noro helmet on her so that the scars on her face aren't visible. And then all the Smoke Ravens bring her up into the, up to the jump ships after, oh, by the way, and I didn't say this before, so after they retreat that one incursion area, Lance Commander Hannibal Sharp takes all the other mechs and wins the day against Marek. Completely leads Lao, and he makes a presence roll to do this. If he had failed, the story would have been a lot less cool. So my player character, Lance Commander Hannibal Sharp, makes his presence roll and actually leads all the Lao troops and all the Smoke Raven troops. They absolutely decimate Marek, and they take this fortified Marek planet, right? House Lao is incredibly happy. They double the mechs. They give 45 mechs to the Smoke Ravens, and they had only had 56 mechs before. But now, at the end of the game, there's this situation where literally at the funeral, in the hangar bays, on the jump ships, on Smoke Ravens, Lance Commander Haytorn steps forward to give the eulogy and starts talking about how he's gonna honor her by leading the Smoke Ravens in her honor, right? And immediately all the player characters are like, "You're out of your mind, Lance Commander Hannibal Sharp." And so I have all the player characters pointing to another player character and going, "He's gonna lead the Smoke Ravens," right? And so then he goes, "Yeah, well, he's not gonna lead the Smoke Ravens, and there's nothing you can do to stop it." And of course, then there's a challenge, and I give the choice to the player character: do you want to fight Lance Commander Haytorn on your own one-on-one, or do you want to do Lance against Lance? And he's like, and he says, "I want to do it by myself." We go in. He has an assault mech against a medium mech. He fires 2 PPCs at the beginning of the round. They actually go back down to the planet, to the secured Marek planet, to have the battle on the same board we had used before, and where there were still mines, right? And so basically, we go down, and it literally in the first round, he fires PPCs twice, and he has to roll his reactor die to do that. He fires PPC twice, he hits with the first PPC, and then he crits with the next PPC and destroys that guy, destroys Lance Commander Haytorn, killing him, killing his mech in one roll. And that was the end. And we ended the session with Lance Commander Hannibal Sharp, one of the PCs, replacing Farah Hetched as the leader of the Smoke Ravens. It was an incredible game. I cannot speak highly enough about Mecha Hack. It is a killer game. You got to give it a try. Take care.